The General Hospital recap for Monday, July 7th, shows that Lulu Spencer slapped Brooke Lynn Quartermain while Sonny Corinthos walked free from the PCPD. Vaughn also hung out with Emma Scorpio Drake. So here's how Monday went. At Windermere, Anna Devane arrived to question Jen Sidwell about Natalia Ramirez's death, but he denied any participation and blamed Sonny Corinthos instead. Later, Anna obtained Natalia's autopsy at GH, where Marco Rios appeared and inquired about the findings. Laura Collins refused to remove herself from Sonny at the PCPD, embracing him as soon as Ezra Boyle entered. Ezra recorded the hug on his phone, but Laura convinced an officer to have him delete it, because it was unlawful in a police interrogation room. Anna then provided details on Natalia's autopsy, which revealed she died from a fatal combination of drugs and alcohol. According to Anna, whether it occurred unintentionally or purposely, it was not murder. Ezra pretended that Sonny could still be responsible with the overdose, but Anna let the mobster leave. When Marco informed his father of the fresh developments, Sidwell assured him that they would not abandon the case as the PCPD had. Outside the Quartermain boathouse, Michael Corinthos told Brooke about Willow Tate's disturbing encounter with Wiley Corinthos in the pool. Brooke Lynn also told Michael that she couldn't carry out her revenge on Lulu, since it would have wounded Rocco Falconeri. Michael ultimately assisted Sasha Gilmore Corbin in dressing Daisy Gilmore for bed, and Sasha admitted that they worked well together. Back with Brooke Lynn, she was able to reconcile with Cody Bell over all of the past secrets. Cody and Brooke Lynn ended up hugging to get their friendship back on track. Sasha went to check on Daisy after the fireworks began. When Sasha discovered Daisy was missing from her cot, she panicked. Giovanni Gio Palmieri briefly spoke with Emma before approaching CARLY'S Spencer about Sonny. Since Tracy Quartermain had been criticizing Sonny, Gio sought CARLY'S judgment on him. CARLY acknowledged that Sonny had done things he was not proud of, but he loved his family. Finally, CARLY advised that Gio speak with Dante about Sonny's difficulties, as he had wrestled with similar doubts regarding his father. CARLY also joined Jocelyn Jacks, who closed her laptop to conceal her Professor Henry Hank Dalton research. CARLY observed Jocelyn glancing at Vaughn when he arrived and encouraged her daughter to go talk to him. Jocelyn and Vaughn agreed to ignore the kiss outside Charlie's pub. The WSB duo discussed how Vaughn could use his love of animals to get closer to Emma, but he also wanted to know what would set her off. Jocelyn said Emma believed she was an entitled brat, which made Vaughn realize he could connect with Emma over that. Jocelyn publicly ditched Vaughn in front of Emma, who was nearby to witness the event. Emma ultimately gave Vaughn a drink and they bonded over Jocelyn's shortcomings, just as Joss and Vaughn had intended. Vaughn also asked Emma about the animal rights group he'd heard about, and she informed him that she founded it. Emma was anxious to converse more and locked arms with Vaughn during the fireworks, which Jocelyn witnessed. At home, Lulu contacted Dante Falconeri for assistance in answering Rocco's queries concerning Britt Westbourne. Dante and Lulu persuaded Rocco that they always intended to tell him everything, but Lulu fell into a coma. Since Lulu awoke, there's been a lot of other drama that has gotten in the way of the truth. Rocco was concerned that Britt may be his biological mother, but Lulu assured that he was both her and Dante's kid. After Lulu and Dante revealed that Britt stole their embryo, they convinced Rocco that he was desired and loved. Rocco described how he discovered the 2 birth certificates in a file with his name on it. Lulu discovered it was in Brooke Lynn's deception work pile, and questioned him outside the Q boathouse. After calling Brooke Lynn a hateful bitch, Lulu slapped her hard across the face and told her that hurting Rocco was unacceptable. According to General Hospital spoilers, the conflict between Lulu and Brooke Lynn is far from done. Emma stops by the Metro Court pool to see Gio and wish him a happy 4th of July. She asks if he has the night off, but he declines since he needs the distraction to take his mind off Sonny. He cannot understand how Sonny can be the man he knows and the one Tracy warned him about. Emma claims that humans can be more than one thing. He wants to know who Sonny is, so Emma suggests he question someone who knows him. CARLY discovers Joss doing research on her laptop, which she claims is for Professor Dalton. CARLY comments that she hasn't seen much of her lately. Joss apologizes for being so busy, and the fire has reminded her of how delicate life is. CARLY says their family has been through a lot, but they are currently safe, happy, and healthy. When Joss sees Vaughn, she remembers their kiss. Carly spots her looking at him and says she can chat to him and will be here all night. Joss talks to Vaughn and they both agree that the kiss last night did not happen and they got off track. They talk about Joss' strategy to get Vaughn close to Emma through her animal rights group. However, he realizes that bonding with Emma requires more than just a love of animals, and he inquires as to what will pique her interest. Joss answers, me. Vaughn wonders why Emma despises her. Joss believes she is affluent, spoilt, and a brat. Joss notices Emma across the pool and stages a fight to grab her attention. Joss refers to Vaughn as a janitor, claiming that they simply do not work well together and are done. She storms out and Emma grins. Emma approaches Vaughn and apologizes for what transpired, explaining that he has just met the genuine Joss. They talk, and he steers the subject to animals, informing her about the animal rights organization on school. Emma explains that she initiated it, and he expresses his want to get involved. They go to the bar to get some drinks and discuss further. Gio flags down Carly to discuss Sunny. He tells her what Tracy told him and isn't sure if she's correct or if he's blind. They settle down and Carly tells him that Sunny had a difficult life, that he has done things he is not proud of, but that he adores his family. He has seen that side, but Carly concedes there is another side to him. She claims Michael and Dante have grappled with the same questions concerning Sunny, and they have accepted him into their lives. Gio believes that if he has any more questions, he will ask his son. Was Natalia's death an accident? Anna visits Windmere to see Sidwell and seeks explanations concerning his role in Natalia's death. He claims he would never be engaged in the death of his son's mother. Sidwell claims he was here negotiating contracts with Alexis when he learned about Natalia, so perhaps she should probe Sunny, as Natalia was his loose end. He informs her that Sunny has a heart issue, which Natalia was aware of, and she may have betrayed his confidence. Anna says she doesn't trust him and goes away. Sunny and Laura talk in the PCPD interrogation room about the recent violence in Port Charles. Ezra tells Sunny that he should be glad that he is free again, telling Anna that Sunny may have staged the overdose. Anna informs Sunny he is free to leave. Laura leads him out, and they both look up at the fireworks. Sidwell attends the Windmere fireworks display when Marco arrives. He is furious that Corinthos is free because an autopsy revealed his mother died of an overdose. Sidwell informs his son that Anna may have dropped the topic, but they will not. Dante and Rocco are on the veranda of Lulu's, watching the fireworks. When Rocco inquires about his mother's whereabouts, Dante responds that she is on an errand. He is concerned that Danny is in trouble, but Dante assures him that no one is upset with him. Back in the boathouse, the drink supply is depleted, so Michael and Cody go up to the house for a beer. Lulu arrives, labels Brooklyn a hateful bitch, and declares that injuring her kid is unforgivable. She then slaps Brooklyn. Brooklyn accuses Lulu of hypocrisy in the upcoming General Hospital episode. Cody tells Ava, "I'm all yours." Christina informs her mother that this time, things went too far. Rick arrives at the pool to discover Liz with Portia and comments, "And I thought the evening couldn't get any better." Sidwell informs Marco. In so doing, she sealed her fate. Rocco wants Jason to tell him everything he knows about Britt. A terrified Sasha yells to Michael, "Someone stole our daughter." Brooklyn's voice raised, not in rage but in exasperation, tinged with anguish and pride. She had never been one to back down from a battle, but Lulu Spencer triggered something in her that sparked all of her unresolved emotions: grief, envy, and territorial defensiveness. The moment had been building for weeks, with unsaid tension permeating every interaction they had, and it had now reached a breaking point. Brooklyn had not expecting to be slapped in the midst of the Metro Court, particularly in front of so many people, but Lulu's hand broke against her cheek, creating a loud sound that stunned the room. Brooklyn recoiled slightly, not physically harmed but stunned, her pride burning bright. Lulu didn't say anything immediately. Her chest heaved, her eyes wide with rage, and she sensed treachery. Brooklyn had crossed the line. It wasn't simply about language or attitude anymore. It was about both Emma and Dante. Lulu felt as if her world had been disturbed once more, and Brooklyn was at the center of it, stirring things up with her constant commentary, arrogant insinuations, and lack of boundaries. The slap was impetuous, but also unavoidable. Brooklyn's eyes wet, not with tears of sadness, but with the rage that only humiliation can bring. She stared at Lulu for a long time, lips parted, cheeks flushed, fingers twitching by her side. Several others gasped in the background, but no one intervened, yet. Everyone knew that when two legacy daughters of Port Charles collided, it was best to watch than intervene. "Are you done?" Brooke Lynn asked finally, her voice low and piercing as glass. Her pride would not allow her to break down in front of Lulu or anyone else. She straightened her spine and clenched her teeth, firmly standing her ground. Lulu's voice trembled. "You had no right, none, to include Emma in anything." Brooke Lynn scoffed. "You don't even know her." "No, but I recognize you. And I understand how you keep pushing everyone away. Emma deserves better than to be dragged into your emotional mess, just so you can feel in control." Lulu's hand moved again, but she refrained. One smack was enough for the crowd. Besides, she wasn't sure she'd be able to hold back the tears if she touched Brooke Lynn again. What terrified her the most was the fact that she knew Brooke Lynn wasn't completely wrong. Across town, Sonny Corinthos emerged from the PCPD interrogation room appearing calmer than expected. Diane Miller moved a step behind him, her demeanor enigmatic as always, but there was a sense of satisfaction in the way she clutched her bag tightly to her side and nodded to the officer behind the desk. Sonny had recently walked free again. Charges were dismissed. Not enough evidence. Surveillance footage was conveniently obscured. Witnesses recanted. It was all so ordinary and predictable. But for Sonny, each time it happened, it sapped even more of his energy. He was no longer as impervious as he once was. Dante had been observing from the corner of the squad room, not saying anything. His gaze met Sonny's for a brief moment. It was neither warm nor frigid. It was just complicated. A son observing his father, who had once again gotten through the system. A detective was well aware that justice and morality did not usually reside in the same house. The desk sergeant remarked, "You're free to go," which was unnecessary. "I know," Sonny said gently. He was not triumphant. He wasn't arrogant. He was simply exhausted. Being Sonny Corinthos had previously meant something powerful and magnetic. It seemed like a heavy cloak he couldn't get off, even if it suffocated him. Nina waited outside the station in her car, sunglasses on and jaw gritted. She hoped this time would be different. She hoped that Sonny would be held accountable, not only by the system but also by himself. But he emerged as cool and unreadable as ever. Emma Scorpio Drake was taken off guard in another section of Port Charles, at the Haunted Star, which was quietly anchored along the port. Vaughn, intriguing and smooth-talking with a subtle appeal, leaned comfortably on the rail near her. He was watching the water, but his gaze occasionally shifted to her, evaluating her reactions, mood, and the space she offered him. "Do you always come here to think?" he asked. Emma shrugged, speaking softly. "It is serene here. There is no pressure. No expectations. Just water and wind." He grinned slightly. "You're different from the others." Emma turned slightly shocked. "Others?" "The remaining Port Charles legacy youngsters. You are not trying to perform a character or prove anything. You have just are." Sonny has a plan to mitigate the damage for her and attempts to persuade her to distance herself from him. But she refuses. As they laugh and cuddle, Ezra walks in, filming them with his phone and pestering them about their friendship. Laura and an officer she flagged down order Ezra to delete his footage, because recording in an interrogation session is unlawful. She tells him he's lucky not to be arrested and orders him out of her sight. Anna arrives later and tells Sonny and Laura that Natalia died from a fatal combo of drugs and alcohol. It could have been accidental or purposeful, but it was not murder. Cody checks on Sasha and Daisy in the Q Mansion living room, recalling how terrified she was on Daisy's baptism day. She feels she only had baby brain, and the modifications have completely turned her around. Cody wishes Daisy a happy first 4th of July, and goes to the kitchen to get some beers to bring down to the boathouse for the fireworks. Brooke Lynn inquires about the children's well-being as they set up a picnic table at the boathouse. Michael informs her about what happened at the Metro Court pool with Willow. Brooke Lynn can't believe Willow would weaponize a child like that, so she starts venting about what Lulu did to her and Gio. She admits she almost sank to Lulu's level and pursued her through Rocco, but she couldn't do it without endangering a child. Michael informs her that she made the correct decision and that he is proud of her. She claims she's not like Lulu, and he's not like Willow and Drew. Michael returns to the mansion and sees Sasha lay Daisy down while telling her how wonderful she is with her. Sasha volunteers to let Michael put her in her sleeping gown and passes it to him. Sasha believes they make a good team, which gives her hope that their co-parenting relationship can work. They say goodnight to her and leave her in the cot. Cody comes at the boathouse and discovers LYNN is still setting things. They haven't spoken in weeks and blame each other for their disagreements. LYNN claims it was her secret that was revealed, and he has no reason to be upset with her. He reminds her that she forced him keep a secret from his best buddy, Dante. They sit down and discuss their difficulties. LYNN apologizes for never telling him she did not terminate her pregnancy, and he admits he simply thought she did. She explains that not telling him the truth does not reflect their friendship, or how much she loves about him. He explains that he had spent most of his life without knowing the truth about his father, and did not want the same for Dante. They forgive each other and hug. At home, Rocco questions his mother about if Britt gave birth to him and if she is his biological mother. Lulu summons Dante for assistance, and he arrives to discover that Rocco has questions regarding Britt. Rocco informs them that he found 2 birth certificates and inquires whether Britt gave birth to him. They said she did, but genetically he is theirs. They intended to tell him when he was older, but when his mother went into a coma, Dante confesses he put it off. Lulu said a lot happened when she awoke. She had a lot to deal with, and the truth became lost in the commotion. Lulu emphasizes that what they are about to tell him does not alter anything, but Rocco believes it does. He mentions how this is similar to Gio and LYNN, but Lulu replies it is entirely different, and they always intended to inform him. Dante promises they will answer all of his inquiries. They explain in vitro fertilization and surrogacy to him, stating that they intended to carry him with Maxie, but things became complicated and the idea was put on hold. Britt then stole their embryo and had it implanted in her. Rocco laments that if Britt hadn't abducted him, he might never have been born, and tears that they didn't want him. Lulu informs him this is not true, and he was 7 months old when they discovered the truth. Rocco believes they are stuck with him, but they claim this is not the case. They return to the doctor to have a kid, and they discovered an embryo was missing. Lulu claims they want it and love him. Rocco wishes Danny hadn't found that file. Lulu asks, "What file?" Rocco informs them that Danny discovered the file containing the birth certificates in a stack of LYNN's deception materials. Rocco says he'll need some time to comprehend everything and goes to his room to think. He claims he's not angry, but he wishes he'd heard it from them. Lulu informs Dante that she is alone and has a task to complete. Dante warns her not to do it, but Lulu exclaims, "LYNN will not get away with this." Sasha, Michael, LYNN, and Cody hang out in the Q's boathouse while they await the fireworks. A year earlier, Cody informed Mac that he was his son. Michael claims that a year ago marked the beginning of the end of his marriage. LYNN hopes Gio will talk to her again next year. The fireworks start erupting overhead. In the final moments of the show, Sasha hears Daisy weeping, most likely due to the fireworks, and slips out to check on her. Everyone at the pool is watching the fireworks when Joss returns and notices Emma cuddling with Vaughn. Carly smiles at Gio. At the PCPD, this bothered her in a manner she didn't quite comprehend. Vaughn was a wild card. No one was sure where he came from or what his goals were. Some said he was connected to the West Coast crime syndicate. Others believed he was working for Valentine Cassadine. And yet with her, he never appeared to have a chance. Or, if he did, he concealed it effectively. "You shouldn't assume I'm not trying to prove anything," Emma remarked, smirking. "I just hide it better." He chuckled softly and easily. "Fair enough." The wind increased significantly, and Emma shivered. Vaughn instantly offered his jacket, which she took after a brief hesitation. It was warm with a faint scent of leather and cedar. She wasn't expecting to feel so safe. She had not felt this way in a long time. Back at Metro Court, LYNN slipped into a side hallway, her face still burning. She did not cry. She would not let herself. But her heart ached in a way that made her reconsider everything she'd said to Lulu. Perhaps she'd gone too far. Perhaps she attempted to defend herself by releasing a verbal missile. That was the LYNN way. Strike first, then reflect. And now she wasn't sure if she was protecting her family or just venting because Lulu still had a history with Dante that Brooklyn could never match. Lulu sat at a small table near the bar, scared and guilty. She hadn't intended to lose control like that. She thought she was over the stage of spontaneous slaps and spectacular arguments. But something about Brooklyn always drew her back into the pandemonium. Perhaps it was jealousy, grief, or unresolved resentment. Whatever it was, she felt it settle into her chest like a weight. Dante spotted her there an hour later, and she didn't even look up as he approached. "I heard what happened," he replied calmly. "Of course you did," she said bluntly. He sat across from her without pressing. "Are you okay?" She finally returned his gaze. "I don't know." Dante stretched across the table for her hand. "You don't need to be flawless, Lulu. Nobody expects that." "I do," she replied gently. "I expected it. I expect to be better than." Slapping Brooklyn in front of half of Port Charles. Dante did not respond. He simply clasped her hand and sat with her in the silence. Sometimes there were no simple solutions, only the decision to dwell in the broken parts together. Later that night, Emma and Vaughn took a quiet walk through the park. They didn't say much, yet their silence was companionable. Vaughn offered Emma a lollipop from his coat pocket, something childish and unexpected, and she giggled before accepting. She hadn't laughed like this in weeks. "Why me?" she inquired quietly after a lengthy silence. "Why are you interested?" Vaughn stared at her for a long time. "Because you do not play games. And I believe you're looking for something real." "Me too." That response worried her more than it soothed her. Vaughn was dangerous, perhaps not in the same way that Sunny or Valentine had been, but emotionally, he was a hurricane waiting to happen. Nonetheless, she found herself lured in, unable to resist. At the Corinthos compound, Sunny stood silently by the window. The weight of the day pressed heavily on his shoulders. He'd walked free again, but the cracks had grown deeper each time. His children, lovers, and acquaintances were all drifting out of orbit. He did not blame them. He hardly knew himself anymore. The world around him had transformed, and for the first time he was unsure where he fit in. Nina entered the room quietly and cautiously. "Are you okay?" Sunny did not respond immediately. He simply peered out into the night, the lights of Port Charles glittering in the distance. "No," he replied finally. "But I will be." She took a step closer, placing a hand on his back. "You don't have to carry it alone." "I know," she replied. But whether he believed it was a different story completely. In the days that followed, the tension between Lulu and Brooklyn persisted, unspoken but boiling. Emma began spending more time with Vaughn, and their relationship grew stronger, despite warnings from others to be cautious. Sunny retreated more into himself, attempting to recapture some feeling of purpose while the walls around him continued to change. Port Charles never slowed down or stopped long enough for anyone to regain their breath. But in the quiet moments between slaps and freedom, new love and old wounds, people continued to seek truth, redemption, and something worth clinging onto. Although tension had been rising in Port Charles for days, few anticipated it would get out of control so fast. Since coming back to town, Lulu had been tense because her memories, her heartache, and her anxieties were all colliding in waves that she was barely able to control. She was irritated by the reminders of the life that had continued without her everywhere she looked, especially Brooklyn. Because of Brooklyn's arrogant self-confidence, Lulu had never been able to forgive her for the past. Lulu's eventual outburst wasn't merely spontaneous, it was unavoidable. The Quartermain estate, where instability frequently lurked beneath the surface, was the scene of the confrontation. Although Lulu had come to deliver something to Rocco, Destiny had other ideas. As though she hadn't been the target of too many emotional outbursts, Brooklyn was there, engaging in light conversation with Ned and Olivia. The energy in the room changed when Lulu spotted her. The air became heavy with ancient wounds and unspoken accusations, and there was a slight but sharp chill. Sensing Lulu's contempt, Brooklyn smiled tightly while maintaining a piercing gaze. She remarked sarcastically, "Nice of you to finally come around." Lulu remained silent. Her fingers tightened on her purse's strap as her body tensed. She didn't feel like playing games today. Between them, the words flowed like a well-practiced script bursting from memory. Lulu was accused by Brooke Lynn of forsaking her son and expecting the world to stop while she recovered. After the deception, deceit, and havoc she sown under the pretense of family responsibilities, Lulu flung it back, saying that Brooke Lynn had no right to pass judgment. Neither woman retreated, and neither observed that other women had started to exit the room, allowing them to collapse. Then it took place. Brooke Lynn leaned in closer, her sneer growing glinty and vicious. Perhaps Dante wouldn't have moved on if you hadn't been so weak. That was it. Lulu reacted without thinking. With a quick crack of rage, her hand shot through the air, and her palm made contact with Brooke Lynn's cheek in a devastating slap that reverberated throughout the room. The impact was louder than the hush that followed. With her palm to her face and her eyes wide with shock and rage, Brooke Lynn staggered back. Lulu's chest heaved with the weight of all the emotion she had suppressed for so long, not with regret. Brooke Lynn did not strike back. She just turned to leave, but the glance she shot Lulu indicated that the war was far from done. Sasha, meanwhile, has been battling her own issues. After months of suffering, addiction, and mental instability, the strands of her life had started to gently come together again. She had begun to regain her rhythm and even find happiness in the little things. Her relationship with Cody was developing into something she could depend on, and her fashion business was stabilizing. But like glass, that steadiness was brittle, strong until it wasn't. She discovered something she wasn't supposed to view while sorting through some old files in the deception office. She initially thought it was simply another set of bills and advertising designs, but then she discovered the pictures. Curiosity overcame her when she noticed a folder with the bolded word "personal" tucked between marketing papers. There were surveillance photos inside, hazy but sufficiently clear. Sasha flipped through them with shaking hands. There were dozens of pictures of her. Some were dated from when she was at her lowest, when drugs and manipulation had taken over her life. Others, however, were more recent, so recent that she could recall the precise times they were taken, such as having coffee with Maxie, shopping downtown, and strolling in the park with Cody. She had been observed by someone, pursuing her, recording whatever she did. Montague was written in the margins, and her breath seized in her throat. That sickening twist of a man who had almost ruined her life while posing as her savior. She believed she had left the nightmare behind and that he was no longer there. However, this demonstrated the opposite. Like a vice, panic encircled her chest. Her mind was rushing over the ramifications as she sat down hard, the folder still in her lap. Did anyone else know? Why hadn't she been warned? And above all, was she still being observed? Unable to handle the revelation on her own, Sasha took the pictures to Maxie right away. Maxie was appalled. Although she was also unaware of the file's origin, she pledged to assist Sasha in discovering the truth. The two women started investigating all potential connections, including who would have known about Montague's perverse infatuation, who had access to the workplace, and whether this was the beginning or the end. Word of Lulu's rage had already spread back to the Quartermain mansion. Olivia was enraged with both women for the commotion they had created. Once again caught in the midst, Dante attempted to soothe Lulu, but she was hardly paying attention. Like unhealed wounds that would not heal, her emotions were unbridled and untamed. Although she had no regrets about the smack, she couldn't deny that it had caused her to feel uneasy. Later that night, Sasha stood on the footbridge, which was the only spot in Port Charles where she felt at ease. She tried to breathe through the tempest the pictures had unleashed inside of her by holding them close to her chest. She was no longer certain of her safety. It felt like everything she had put back together was falling apart once more. She wasn't alone though, unlike before. There Cody discovered her. He knew her well enough to make a guess, even if she hadn't told him she was going. At first, he sat next to her, his warmth a silent consolation, without saying anything. His face darkened with anger as she showed him the folder. But there was a passionate protectiveness underneath the fury. He assured her, "We're going to find out who did this. And we'll make sure they don't touch you ever again." Sasha took him seriously. She was forced to. Because she would end herself back where she began, lost, broken and alone, if she let the fear to win. And that was too far for her. With her face still pink from Lulu's smack, Brooke Lynn gazed at herself in the mirror as she returned to the Quartermain mansion.